Ready to get started. So good morning everybody. Hope you all had a very good evening last evening with the barbecue, the dinner and a bit of a meeting everybody and talking shop. So this morning's talk, bit of a workshop, bit of a show and tell. For those of you that do have your laptops open and out, feel free to log into the conference site and follow along. You've actually, I don't know if you've been made aware yet, but you've all been made builder admins of the conference site. So if you actually log into conference/builder with your same user account details, you'll be able to follow along and build along with me when we just jump into, so we can do a little bit of a show and tell there. For those of you that either don't have a computer or aren't too savvy yet in the builder toolkit, that's alright, don't worry. We've got plenty of online help documentation, and obviously when your organisation does start to roll it out, you will go through some comprehensive training in a lot more detail than what I'm going to cover today. So the goal of today is, like I said, a bit of a show and tell, just so you can see some of the options that I talked about 2 days ago, and also so we can kind of pull the covers over and see what's underneath, because it was largely just generic, a little bit superficial. Here's the basic features of what we can do with the scheduling and appointments. Today we're just going to get a little bit more technical, so if I go a little bit too fast, I apologise, just tell me to slow down a little bit. I just forget sometimes how well I know the system compared to others. So if we remember back to my talk a few days ago, there was 3 options that I outlined and talked about. So the first option was just being able to download or subscribe to the normal Smartabase calendar. So basically ripping that calendar out of Smartabase, placing it into your Outlook as an example. So we're going to go through that one first, and then we're going to go through just a little bit of a how do you actually use the scheduling module, and also from the builder side of things, how do you quickly build one, and we'll actually go through the process of building a scheduling module, and then the same thing with appointments. So in the actual conference site, if you have been actually entering a little bit of data against your account, because if you log into the conference site, into the...
Excuse my handwriting, but your site is demo.smartabase.com/conference, and if you want to go to builder/builder, the lowercase, you're all set up with your own username and user account, so it's just your first name, your last name, all lowercase, and password is the same for everybody, capital C Conference 2014.
So with the calendar, so the first part is you're in your normal Smartabase site just as a user, and I want to subscribe to an athlete's calendar or download. So here if we go to, I'll pick someone other than Jamie. What about Lee? Let's have a look at him. There we go. So he's got a nice little bit of data there in his calendar, and so like I said, you've got your 2 links over here, so I'm just going to zoom in for a second. So the first thing I'll do is the download option, so click, and I said remember at the moment it's just restricted to a month. We are going to extend that and expand that and give you a few different options there as to how much you want to download for, and then just hit download. It'll ask you for your username and password, just to make sure that the file that gets produced needs to obey the system permissions. So that's what this extra authentication step is all about. And what it will do is just download a little ICS file there for me. So if I go show in folder for that one, I can right click on that, open with Microsoft Outlook. And now if I go to my Outlook, it automatically opens, and there's Lee Thomas's calendar in my Outlook. So very simple process, couple of clicks, and now I've downloaded the calendar for that player for that month. And we can see here over on the left hand side a few of the calendars that I have. So there's my normal work calendar that I've just temporarily hidden. If you're synced up to an iCloud, you'll have your iCloud if you're on a PC, but you know, if you're on Mac, then you'll have your iCloud calendars there too. But you can see here that I've subscribed to quite a few different athletes. Let's go back to month view or week view. that we can see there. So each of these calendars, again, you can color them however you like. You can have all your normal Outlook properties in terms of your reminders. They will work with these calendars as well, if you can turn them on or turn them off through there. So that's a pretty simple process to download a calendar, because that just produces that ICS file, and you can import that into pretty much any native mail or calendar application on the internet, because it's an internet standard. So the next thing is the option to subscribe. So this one's a slightly different workflow. What you're going to get with this one is that URL, which you're going to need to copy and paste in. So if again, let's choose a different athlete. How about Oliver? Because I don't think I've got Oliver's calendar yet, just to make sure. Nope, don't have Oliver. So let's go and subscribe to Oliver's calendar. So at the moment, these settings is just what's there for now. Again, this isn't exactly what it's going to be. We're open to some suggestions and some feedback as to what you would like in here. But I'm just going to subscribe for this month, and if I want to include previous months or next months, or even a whole year, I can subscribe to this year and next year's, etc. So just a few different options there, but again, open to changing and developing that. So I'll just go back to a month and a month. I don't want to fill my calendar too much, and subscribe. So what this workflow does is I got the message at the top. It's going to email me a link. Send me an email. Inside that email will be the link. So there we go, there's the email that's landed, and that's the URL, which is basically the calendar URL for this particular athlete, in the same way that you would subscribe to any web calendar. So let's copy you and go to my calendar. So where you've got your other calendars, if you right click, then add calendar from internet, paste in that URL, click OK, go to advanced. It'll try to contact the web server and make sure that you've got permission, so then you get this little pop-up box and you can name this calendar and set just a few little properties there. So I think this one was Oliver's calendar, so I'll just call it Oliver. You can put a bit of a description in there, that's the URL. You can also have this little checkbox, so that if you've got your email address associated with multiple different computers, then it will just sync across those ones. And go OK. And yes. And there is Oliver's calendar in my Outlook at the moment. So because I'm opened and I've got a bunch of other calendars for those athletes in that application already there, Outlook has gone and cached my password. If I were to close Outlook and then come back in and open it, I'd get prompted to put in my authentication for Smartabase. So I'll need to put in my username and email address to download the latest state of the calendar. So that's a really important step if you've got professionals or users in your organization that have subscribed to another user's calendar in Smartabase. If they then leave, you don't want them to still be getting the feed of that athlete's session after they've gone. So if you deactivate someone's account or change their password, then they won't be able to get the feed of any new sessions pushing through to their calendar. So that's another important step, but I'm sure your organizations have some processes involved in doing that. But then again, if you've left, then you don't have a work email. But there you go. So that's just a quick sort of how to subscribe and download in Outlook. For your other mail clients, I don't have a Mac with me at the moment, but similar sort of process, and plenty of tutorials and help guides on the internet about how to import and download and subscribe to different calendar options that you might have. So that's number one. Is there any questions before I move to the second part? Okay. So now if we go into the builder, into the main application. So in the conference site, so this is the one that you will all have been set up as builder admins in. So what we're going to do now is build a simple scheduling type form. So you've all got the keys in here, so feel free to tap along and try and be a little bit creative, but with the name of your event or your particular entity. So usually the first step in the process would be to set up your entity. So what I'll do is give you a little bit of a show and tell of what I've already built in there, and then we'll go through the process of how you build one from scratch. So this new button that we've been talking about, the related entities, is here in the builder, and then like we said, it's pretty much exactly the same as you're building a database field. So if we go in there and have a look quickly at any existing venues that we have, so you click to open, and this is the template that we've used to build our venue form. And if I go back a level, you'll be able to then click Add Edit Records and have a look at any of our existing venues that we might have. So we can see straight away none of these have actually been associated with an email address yet, so we'll just need to make sure that we do that. So if you're going to have venues, locations, resources in your organisation that have email addresses, make sure you put those in exactly as they are. So to edit any one of these ones, so we can go to, let's say, video room. Let's actually put that email address in. And every single one of these entries into an entity database has a unique ID that sort of lives behind the scenes. So we don't actually bring that ID forward, but it's just there as well, and that's what gives this this entity that unique ID when you need to subscribe to its calendars. So in terms of your entities, you can have as many as you like. You can build them with whatever information that you like. So for example, in my therapist, at the moment, we've just got the name, email and availability. So those are the three kind of, well, must-have type fields. One thing with your entities, the very first field at the top needs to be called name. You can't have it called anything else. So if I try and call this provider or physio or doctor or just something else, you'll get this red error message that says it has to be called name, because in the back end that's how we make them talk to each other. It needs that label. Similarly with the email address, that needs to be called email. So if I quickly just go to change you back to name, and in your add question, so this is for those of you that have experienced builders, there'll be a couple of new question types that we've added. So you'll see here in the standard section, we've got a new one called email address. So that's a specific field where you can actually start to enter email addresses into, and then it uses that email address field there when it needs to push out and publish and do its sending. So that's a new one in the top over there. The other thing, or the other few things that are new, is the multiple time period field over here. So this is where you can add this field to the form, and then a specific doctor, physio, treatment provider, whatever this entity is, can specify availability on given days and times. So they're just a few important fields there for your entity fields. So if I go back a level to my therapists, so if you're in there now, please go ahead into the therapists and add a bunch of doctors or names if you like. So we'll just go into Add Edit Records. We don't have any in there anymore. So yeah, by all means, please go put some therapists in. The process would be to add a therapist. We'll call it Physio Bob. You can call your physio whatever you like. And the availability options that we have here. So when you click the green plus button, you can specify the day, and then their default sort of start and finish time that they usually work on a Monday. So if Physio Bob works from 11 till 3 on a Monday, then that's his availability slots on a Monday. And then you can do that process, just repeat for each day of the week as needed. if you do choose to put this availability for a particular provider, let's say I just do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and these are his available slots, but I haven't actually specified sort of Tuesday, Thursday and the weekend, it means he's unavailable those days, and nobody will be able to book anything against Physio Bob on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's just a note on those ones there. So if he goes 8 till 4 Friday, he just works in the afternoon on a Friday, 6 and save and close. So there's Physio Bob. Oh yeah, there we go. John Mellon. Yeah, Dr. Walker. We've got a couple of doctors and therapists in there. Great. So now we're starting to build up that list again. So from an organisational perspective, your builder perspective, the only person that can really update these values is somebody in the builder, which for some of you might present quite a huge organisational impact. It'd be a lot of work to manage and control these sort of things. So if you're a smaller club, smaller client, sorry, like a footy club, single sport, one group of people, smaller numbers, it'll be a lot easier for you to manage there. So again, we do have a lot of ideas about how that could potentially roll out and expand in a SaaS type network, multi-sport, multi-area, multi-disciplines. So yeah, we've got a few ideas there already. So now that you've got a few of your related entities set up, or those objects, we can go into the event pages and build a scheduling form. So in your event pages, so you've still got your full list that you would normally have in there. I've already built one called training. So there's the training schedule, but we'll go through the process and we'll all actually build one ourselves, but just to show you. With the training schedule form, so one of the first fields that you could put at the top is the related entity. And like we said, you build them to capture anything that you want to schedule, but with that comes with a bit of a caveat, because I think the more different types of pages you have, the better, because with the calendars, I'll just turn a bunch of these off and show you an example of the conference calendar that I pushed in and tested with. So here's an example of the conference page, which had, I'll just, is the builder open? Conference site. Event pages, conference program. So here is a form that I called conference program and built with all the different types of sessions and presenters, etc. that we were going to, or that we've had. But when that exports out to the calendar, they'll all end up with just that main label, so you lose a little bit of the detail and the granularity when you want to look at that superficial view. So if you just have one form that does all your scheduling, when it comes out to the calendar like this, you don't actually see the detail on the first page. So that's why having maybe a different form for the different types of sessions that you're going to have, so different completely different event page for a strength session, for a conditioning session, for a sports session, for an appointment, for travel, for a flight, for a bus, for a etc, 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 because then at least you'll get those labels that come through on the front page. So just as a builder, just be aware of those different things. So if you look at your current or existing calendars that your club might produce or your sport might produce, that's really a good place to start, just picking out those key sessions that you would normally have. So let's go back to that training schedule. So in terms of building the form, so there's no questions, everybody kind of understands that process. Now if we click into the advanced properties for the form, so this is where things get very different, and this is where it's not just a normal event page now. We're going to have a whole bunch of new properties that we have, and most of them are sitting sort of up here at the top. The most important one, or the newest one that you need to get your head around, is we've got this new event type drop down that you have here. So by default, every event page in your system has always been an event page, but with these two new modules, you're basically building pages that will only work in those modules. So if it's by default, it'll be an event, but if you then make it a scheduled event, or an appointment, then it means that this page will only work for data entry in those particular modules. So I know a lot of clients that are already using event pages to do scheduling just with the system, and that's just as an event page. But if you need to actually use the scheduling modules, choose scheduled event. With the scheduled event and the appointments, there's a few other properties that we have now. So you can set a default length. So for example, if your default appointment length with the doctor is half an hour, half an hour, you can specify 30 minutes. And then you've also got the option to allow an override, so that if you're booking the appointment and you want to extend it or shorten it, you can give the person making the bookings that option. So if I allow length override say no, it means that you'll only ever be able to book 30-minute appointments, no more, no less. But if you allow the override, you'll get that. Then there is the this other property that we have over here, the event name in calendar summary. So what that can actually do is, just when it displays in the calendar summary, you lose this front little label and you'll only actually see the detail of the session, rather than just cluttering the calendar with a bit of the extra text that you have over there. If you've got the multi-athlete selector field in the form, you'll need to be aware of this property over here with the athlete fields. So it can either do nothing. It'll either show the list of all the athletes in the calendar. So when I log in as a coach and I look at that session, I'll be able to see the list of the athletes. Or I can make it actually create the events for those athletes, which was the example that I just mentioned before. So there's a few little properties there. But again, during builder training, we'll make sure that you get all of those under your belt. So that is how we build a scheduling form in terms of how you add the related entities, how you have the new multi-athlete selector, and how you actually make it an entity form. The other thing, sorry, just before I move on, this status field, if you want that in your forms and you choose to have that there, then they will default color in those particular modules with the green, the amber and the red. If I go back to, let's say I built a page in here for the appointments. There's one for, let's say, the different people that you can book an appointment for. And if we go into the physio appointment, this one also has those particular status fields. But if you want to, you can override that and choose to have different colors, just as you would any other event page in the system. So again, this is another feature which I don't know if many of you are actually utilizing it, by being able to have certain event pages mean certain colors in the system. So for example, if you wanted a physio appointment to be, like a melon color, or if you wanted a doctor appointment to be a honeydew melon color, or even different shades of purple, you can actually specify those colors in here. So there's my calendar saved color. So anytime a physio or a coach wants to look at an athlete's calendar, they can actually, their eyes will just be drawn to the existing colors that your club might have, to know that matches are red, training is green, recovery sessions are blue, pool sessions are purple, etc. So that's just another feature that you may or may not be aware of. And while I'm in the physio appointment, this is a good place to mention that you can have many different entities in your form. So here is an example where I've got an entity database of all the therapists that someone can book an appointment with, and we can also book them in different venues. And if we needed that other equipment entity, we could also add that in there as well. So you can have as many as you like. In terms of building your appointment and scheduling forms, there's no real difference, except for where you choose the event type. So the scheduled ones are schedules, appointments are appointments. And that just differentiates which modules this form will end up working in. Cool. So that's about it for the build a bit. Hopefully I didn't get too technical and over many people's heads. So once, as a builder admin or even as a builder, you've gone and built your entities, you've built your forms, the next thing is, from an administration perspective, who has access to them. So again, you need to go into your admin site, you go to your roles, then you would need to find your the roles that need to be able to do these sort of things. Actually, I'll go to one that doesn't have them. Let's go to Fusion staff. So there's all the Fusion staff, and these are our existing. Actually, no, that's a bad example. Let's just go to a new role. Athlete. There's going to be some system permissions and some data permissions specific for the scheduling. So actually, I'll go and do that one. Let's go to Conference Builder Admin. So here are the list of the basic system permissions that a user would need. So we've got the enter schedule data and preview schedule data. So that's if that person's going to be doing any of the scheduling, they need to have access to those particular modules. Also, if they're going to do a publishing, they'll need access to that. And then also just being able to view the appointments. So there's a few different system permissions there. So basically, do they have access to these modules, yes or no? Do they need to be able to do the bookings, yes or no? And you just assign that as needed across your organization. So whether or not you need to create a completely new role, that would probably be my recommendation. Instead of just adding these different permissions to existing roles, create a new role which is just, can book appointment, and then just apply that to the different user groups. So there's a few system permissions in there, and then with the data permissions, in the same way that you've got event page access and a database access, you also need to have now access to the entities. So we can see there that this particular role has read and write to the doctor list, read and write to the therapist list, and if we go to page 2, they'll also have the venue. So again, do they have access to the module? And then the next level is, well, which forms can they actually book? So if somebody can only book, let's say there's somebody within your club, I'll go for a footy example, the person that's responsible for booking all the flights and hotels when players travel interstate, then she only has access to the travel and the bookings and the flights and the hotels form, but she can't actually go and schedule training or recovery sessions or gym sessions. So how do some of these modules actually work? So I'm logged in as a staff member at the moment. In terms of entering a session, so we saw that just before. So you go for the training session, we'll see, oh, there's a bunch in there. Very good, we've got a few people entering the data, love it. Let's say in the gym at 2 o'clock, let's all go down for a strength session. Let's get everyone down. And at the moment the default status can be on, and we don't need to worry about that bit there. And this is an important step with the schedules. Quite often the person who's creating or designing these schedules might need to do it a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, a month in advance. But before they actually publish and push that information out to the organisation, there's a lot of toing and froing and juggling, and things change and I need to quickly move it. So the particular example at the Royal Ballet is that every single week on a Friday afternoon they need to publish the schedule for the next week. So all during that week, the guy that does their scheduling is always trying to move sessions around. He's got a logistical nightmare really in terms of his job, but every time he makes a change, he doesn't want everyone to see the raw copy or the draft copy of what he needs to do for his work. He just needs to be able to publish once it's all done on the Friday. So this is where we've got the option of, with this record, if I save it and publish it, it will actually save it in the system, save these 35 athletes' records as real records, which means they will push to their calendars, push to their history. It'll just be another event in the system as per normal. Or your other option is to keep it as a draft. So if I take this session and save as draft, it means that only I'll be able to sort of see it and tweak it and edit it, but we'll see there that we've got it in a different color, so that when I need to edit and move and tweak that, I can do that from the different modules. So if I go to the preview schedule, Now we can say that show me day by day if I need to move things or tweak things or edit things. So from here I can quickly hover over, get my tooltip, I can click on that record. I can either choose to edit it for individual people or for multiple different people. It takes me to this sort of group entry screen, so if I need to tweak the details for an individual person or edit their times and say they're going to come in early, they're going to come in late, I can do all those sort of things and edit in group entry mode. But the key thing here is that if you need to just quickly draft out the 2-week training camp that we're going to have, but then just publish it when it's finished, I can have that with these options here at the top. So the options are I can either just sort of publish or save, which means I can say that any of these records that are in draft mode, so I might have a week's worth of information with 40, 50 sessions in draft mode, and with one click of a button save all of that as real records for all those athletes. So it's a one-click save to save potentially hundreds. The other option is to do the save and also push it out with the iCals. So this is where we said that if your entities have email addresses associated with them, so venues and staff and different things, saving this will also, so I'll actually go through that process now. Publish all those events between what date and what other date, so you can actually specify your range, and then I'll get a pop-up box that says of the entities that exist in the forms in my calendar, so in this case it was mostly just the venue, which of these do I actually want to send the email address, or sorry, send the email to. And of course all these accounts will have calendars as well, whether those calendars live in sort of Gmail or Outlook or wherever. It will publish to all of those, confirm, and then send. So this is a way where Smartabase can now talk to any of your existing sort of club calendars.
Is that all real publishing? So you put in draft mode, or is there a draft in that as well?
Well, these green boxes here were probably some people in the room that were adding those in there, but the session that I added was the gym session at 2 o'clock. So that gym session at 2 o'clock is now saved real record.
But can you save it, can you do tweaks in there and save as a draft still?
Yes. Yep. Yep. So if we go back again, I'll show you that workflow. Let's enter another session. Training schedule. Let's enter it for tomorrow. So I can toggle day by day. The other thing that we can do with these views, sorry, while I'm here, is at the moment I've just got the venues or the entities on my top list. I can click this little box, and if I've got access to different entities, I can change and toggle the view. It's not working in there at the moment because we don't have any. But so field 1 on Saturday, we're going to do a sports skills session. Again, everyone will be there. Let's play a bit of touch footy and beach swim. Yeah, who needs that? And the default status could be on, and I'm going to save this as a draft. So from 10 to 11 on Saturday, field 1. Let's just remember that. So saved as draft. Go to the preview module. Let's have a look at Saturday. So if I need to move or tweak or change any particular movements on that Saturday, I can click to open that record, edit training schedule for everyone, and then edit the table. Okay, instead of field 1, actually no, won't be able to edit that one because that was the entity there. But let's say we're going to change it to a different type of session or something like that. But you do what you need to do there. But then if I go down to the bottom, you've got the options down there, which, I don't know if you can see, but you can save, publish and close, or just save and publish, or keep it in draft mode. So if I save as draft, it stays in a draft mode for those particular changes that I need to make. Again, also if you need to delete any of those records, you can delete individual ones, or you can delete entire group in groups that you need to do there. Sorry? Yep, so it's just normal group entry mode that you would have in the table. So for example, if I go into those 35 athletes, beach swim, and we'll have a, whoop, hang on, what's happening there? I think I clicked the wrong button. fill down. So that'll edit those changes in there. If I needed to, for whatever reason, move this to a different date, so let's say we're not doing it on Saturday anymore, we're going to do it on Sunday, and we're not going to do it at 10, because who's up at 10 on a Sunday? We're going to do it at 11 till 12. And save as draft still. Alright, so we can see that that session's no longer on the Saturday. Click over to the Sunday, and I've now moved him to the Sunday. So just a little bit of a tutorial there with the schedules. So quickly, we'll go to appointments. How do you go about entering an appointment? At the moment I've only got access to the physio appointments, but if you had multiple different types, you would have the menu that you would choose from before there. So we can see that we've got, yep, great, bunch of doctors over there. At the moment, none of them are really available on a Friday, with the exception of Dr. Walker, who's got a little bit of time in the morning. So all of these pink cells are unclickable because they're all unavailable for those given times. So anywhere where there's white, somebody can click and book an appointment. So if I needed Dr. Walker at 7, there's Dr. Walker. Which venue are we going to go into? So if I try to go to, say, Field 1, if Field 1 was already booked for Friday the 21st at 7, oh, perfect, he's busy. So straight away you see, as you're trying to book this appointment, if there are any conflicts with any of those entities already in the system, it tells you busy. So we get that red text there. It still allows me to go and try and book this appointment with that resource, and that'll flag an alert to somebody within the organisation who will then need to go and decide whether or not somebody can get bumped or somebody can get moved. So you won't be able to do it with the primary entity at the top, but for any sort of sub-entities in there, you're still able to then try and book it, but it'll flag up conflicts and alerts, which, you know, big red, somebody will need to go and address that. Again, with an appointment form for medical, you can link in all the other information that you need to link in through there. Yeah, so it could be as simple and straightforward as that. So if we go and have a look at a calendar for a given athlete that we could have in there, so we'll be able to see different colours that we've got there. Physio appointment. So if we go into that physio appointment and we reschedule that or cancel that, and sort of save, that should have a that strike through line, but I think I missed a property or a setting in there. But again, this is just the test bed site, so feel free to go in there and have a play and see if you can break it. Any feedback that you might have, we're more than welcome to hear that. We'll constantly be developing and evolving these modules, and again, all that will come based on your feedback that you have. So yeah, quick run through tutorial of those couple of new modules. Any questions at all?
How real does the email address need to be? If you really don't care about setting up an account for Field 1,
oh, okay,
to have it have its own calendar,
don't have an email.
just don't put the email
Yeah,
at all.
yep. With the so the question was, if you need to have resources or entities in there, but they don't have emails, they don't need to have emails, you don't envisage them in the future needing emails because you currently don't book that way with your different entities, you don't need to have an email address. So if I go into my entities list, oh, great, somebody's built one. If you're S&Cs or you've got something in there, you don't need that email. Let's just delete it and just have name.
Because if you accidentally put in a fake one that's actually real.
Real, yes. Yep. Yeah, so if in that instance, either just leave it blank or don't enter them. So an example is in my venues, I had one in here. So video room has an email address because potentially there might be competing resources within an organisation for the video room, but nobody else in the club might need the treatment room or the fields because that's only the footy department. But if you need to fight marketing and those guys for the video room every now and then that needs to talk to the video rooms.
We already would have one.
Yeah, yep. So now we're just also kind of piggybacking on that. But if they don't need an email, just leave it blank.
So just a quick comment on the development process of doing this. This was a customer-driven development project, a big one. It blew out a little bit, but as you can see, it's been built incredibly thoroughly, and it's been done. This is a good example of, it was, I think, probably the best project we've ever done, which was really well documented. It started out with a spec, but actually the AIS kicked off, and they sort of did. Another, client picked it up. We really need to get this done. This is really important to our business. So they refined the spec and everything, and then we actually, right at the start of the development, the dev team went, well, hang on, is that spec enough? So what they actually got us to do was write what's called a paper prototype. So we actually had to do all of this stuff just in PowerPoint and go through and say, if you click here and you click there and this happens and that happens. And taking it to that second level, it changed so much it wasn't funny, and we got to a totally different place. And what was actually built, if we'd actually just built this off the original spec, I don't know, it wouldn't have probably turned out that well. So as a result now, as you can see, it's been built out so thoroughly, thinking about all of these different little scenarios and things like that could happen. And it was just a matter of getting out a piece of paper basically and scrapping it out. So again, it's about really thinking first before you act about what you want to get done what you want to get out of it. So whether it's custom software development or even just form development, report development, all that sort of stuff, but it's really about sitting down at the start, not building the heck out of it and then going, okay, let's see if that is what they wanted. And we've heard a lot about that the last couple of days. So think before you leap is the clear message out of that. Okay, we're going to stop for some caffeine and sugar, thankfully. And just as a reminder, can you please fill in those, just write your questions down on those papers and drop them off here or something. You can make them anonymous or you can put your name on them or whatever. And then after tea we're going to just have an open forum. So we're going to get all of our team out the front here. We're probably going to call on a couple of clients to come up and show some cool things. If you've got anything cool that you want to show or a story you want to tell, whether it's in Smartabase or around this area of athlete data management in general, it's just all about sharing, asking questions, opening it up. So that should be fun. Lunch at 12:30 and then we'll come back for my final rant and then we'll just have breakouts after that. So, coffee's up. Thanks, Pete.